And we didn't get in this business to start creating IPs for publishers. We were creating them for us.
Right.
What we decided was we said, instead of, because we were just about to birth our new property, which is called Citizen Siege, but it was actually greenlit at a high, AAA budget for this generation, this new generation of consoles, and we chose not to do the deal. And instead we said, you know what, let's instead of trying to do this deal, and a publisher will wind up owning the IP, and they'll own up owning the film rights, why don't we go get the film deal first, and then we'll come back to games. So that's what we did, and it actually worked out. So we took the time off when we closed the shop in San Luis Obispo in 2005. We largely scaled way down to just a handful of people and focused on developing the film. And then we partnered with John Williams. So he was the producer on the Shrek movies. And he saw what we were doing with the film of Citizen Siege, and he got really excited about that. So we signed a deal with John, and we're in active development on that film. And that's an animated film of mature content. It's going to be pretty hardcore. So that was the first step that we wanted to do in what we considered phase 2 of Oddworld's life.
And this and Citizen Siege has nothing to do with the Odyssey?
Nothing at all. No, it's its own universe, which is a near-future Earth that is very relevant to current times and current trends in a scary sense. So, it's kind of a fun project, but it has nothing to do with the Oddworld universe.
And when you say it's
brand new IP,
it's like mature and very serious. So it's it might have the producer of Shrek attached, but it's not a comedy. Is it more along the lines of, like, say, the Final Fantasy movie, kind of a?
No, Final Fantasy is a really bad example because it's a really bad movie. Movie that didn't have a story. I mean, that's not my opinion. That's pretty much history. And everyone agrees.
That's fact. You're putting that down as fact. Adding that to the Wikipedia page for Final Fantasy movie.
It had some wonderful computer graphics anyway, not to slam their movie effort.
Right.
It didn't work as a story or as a film. So I wouldn't use that as an example at all. This would be closer to Terminator or 24. A little bit of sci-fi and very relevant current political and geopolitical issues that we're all facing. Like I said, it's a brand new IP, so we wanted to go out and instead of releasing that first as a game, which meant that's all we would ever be attached to.
Right.
The game publishers would own it from that point. We decided that we would launch it as a movie, or at least secure the movie deal first, which is, these things take a long time, right? So films take a long time to finance. You can get a game financed a lot faster than a film, interestingly enough, provided that you have the right materials for both.
Is it because like most games, games are getting more and more expensive, but we're still talking, $10 to $20 million. Is it because they're cheaper to make, or?
Yeah, that's part of the reason, and it's a different type of business, where, film is very much an outsourcing type of business, even if you're in Hollywood. I don't necessarily mean outsourcing overseas as much as, if you look at Bruckheimer's company, or you look at Bad Robot, different film development companies that are creative and producers, they then contract out all of the legwork. They're hiring the film crews once it goes into production. They don't carry a whole big overhead staff.
Yeah.
Like game companies do. So the nature of these two different industries is very different in that to build games you have to have a production facility. Well, to build movies you don't. So it's just a different way of working. And the budgets for movies are higher. We're targeting at a $40 million budget for the CG animated film. And so that's twice as much money as a game of the high end today that's considered standard for AAA.
Right.
And as a result, you have an equally finicky climate. You have a lot of skepticism in film financing, just like you have that skepticism in game financing. But you're not carrying that overhead like game studios do. So game studios, you have to really book projects and make sure that you're keeping that staff in place, and most of the work is all being done in-house. Whereas film is more of you contract out. The key companies are either service companies or they're content development companies. Bruckheimer being a good example, or Bad Robot, which is J.J. Abrams' company. They do Lost and other shows, Alias. And so film just takes a long time to finance. You very rarely hear about a game that someone's been trying to get financed for 6 or 8 years, but all the time you hear that in film. And games are very relevant to the technology play at hand right now, whereas films, you have more of a timeless medium. You know, a great concept could come out in 5 years, and it's not going to matter that the technology has changed. It's a different standardized business overall. For us, having a film deal on our new property and then coming back to the game space and saying, okay, now here's the game we want to make, and guess what? This is how we're synergizing it to the release of the motion picture, which is already in movement. Now, all of a sudden, that's a much more viable game property, but it also has a more favorable terms to us because we're bringing a lot more to that game package to help bring that to the public and to help build awareness of that. You know, the reason that all the game companies are licensing film properties is because they want the marketing campaigns that are coming from the film studios that are promoting that. So if there's a $40 million campaign on a movie for advertising and marketing alone, what the game publishers want to do is they want to secure that license, and then as that $40 million is being spent in theaters and on the airwaves and radio and television and print, they want to say, with a $4 million marketing budget, hey, and get the game over here. You know, they don't have to do the whole brand awareness global marketing campaign. They just have to ride the back on a big campaign. So they value that a lot, and they see that they get greater, you know, eyeballs from the general mass market if they can attach to a film. And statistically, that really adds up for them, you know, financially. And that's why we see, you know, companies like THQ, almost their entire model is based on that. Or EA, you know.
Well, so now you've got you've got Citizen Siege the film, which is due to come out in 2009. Is that still roughly the?
Yeah, we're targeting like probably 2010.
Okay, and it'll come out simultaneously with the game, but you
actually we plan on releasing the game early because there's a synergy we haven't yet to reveal, but there's a synergy that's really going to fuel both mediums because we want to do it smarter. You know, I mean, here's where we are. We're in a landscape where we know that there's a game going to come out for X-Men, right? We know that there's a game going to come out for Spider-Man.
Right.
We know that the real property is the movie, and then the Spider-Man game is just going to back it up. You know, they're just going to ride on the theme of the movie. And what's been, I think, disappointing to the audience is they say, we want as quality a game as we're getting the quality of a movie experience. And so far, those two don't really add up.
No, that rarely happens.
Yeah, so we want to change that. So we're doing something really unique, and I'm not able to pull the trigger and tell you exactly what that is. But I think
I'm guessing it's a DS game that you bring into the theater and interact with the film. There.
No way. No, Suicide, you know, I got past that a while ago, so I'm not into heading down that track now. I mean, anything that would involve you bringing hardware into a movie theater is not going to work, you know, so I wouldn't even go down that route. But there's some nice things that we're doing, and I'm sorry I can't release that information yet, that's going to synergize film and game in ways that aren't expected and will make both audiences more excited about both platforms, and each platform, meaning the film and the game, are designed very much to maximize their medium. So it's kind of a mad strategy, filing it. I mean, you know, you get into the attorney's rooms as you're shaking out these deals, and it's hard to get everyone to understand how these things can happen without a simultaneous release. Because what we have right now is we have an industry that's conditioned to believe that it's all about the simultaneous release. What we add on top of that, we say, yes, it's all about the simultaneous release unless you're being more creative and finding a better way to maximize what the idea of simultaneous release is, but to actually, you know, give it more legs than what that currently gets you.
Right.
And so, you know, it's a creative play that hopefully synergizes both mediums, you know, at a higher quality than we're accustomed to.
And so in Citizen Siege, did it start out, now you said it was going to be a property for next-gen consoles. Did it start out as a game and then you got the movie deal, or was it always intended to be...
Well, everything that we've created has intended to be both from the beginning. I mean, originally wrote Abe's Odyssey as a film story, and Munch, which in manifestation became a very different story from what, you know, the original story was, and Stranger as well. But
and one thing I'm curious too is you're notorious for doing like a lot of the voices and a lot of the sound effects in the games. Are you going to be like doing all the voices and everything for Citizen Siege, or?
Oh no, you know, we got to get some real talent for that.
You're retiring that aspect.
You I mean, when you're doing the games, part of it was that as a person running the company, I didn't want to sign the deals with SAG, the Screen Actors Guild.
Right.
Because once you do, then you always have to use them. So when I look at voices, I see and I watch the negotiations happen for voice talent in games, and there's very seldom have I plugged in a game and heard hired voice talent that I thought actually did a good job for the game. I was always impressed by the Mel Blancs and the Jim Hensons and Frank Oz's. Like if you were going to put that puppet on your hand, you better be able to do the voice.